Hey all, welcome back to one more session today. In today's session, we are going to talk about APB protocol timing diagrams. Okay, until now we have discussed about APB signals, master and slave communication, and APB operating states. Okay, and in today's session, we are going to discuss about the timing diagrams, which is the end of APB protocol. So, as I told you in the starting itself, in while we are introducing about the APB, that these three are the three important topics that you are going to learn in APB protocol. Okay, in today's video, we are going to discuss about the timing diagrams. Timing diagrams are nothing but by consider how the reading and writing transfer takes place. We will be seeing that based on the diagram. This timing diagrams will be seeing that how the transfer is going to take place. So basically, in any communication, like when there is a master and slave communication in APB, here two kinds of transfers takes place, which are read transfer and then write transfer. So what is this read transfer? Read transfer is nothing but the master is reading something from the slave. Okay, and write transfer means the master is going to put something or write something into the slave. So that is write transfer. Okay, so we are going to see about this read and write transfers individually in today's session. Before going into today's session, if you are new to this channel, consider subscribing channel and hit on the notification bell also. Please do like this video, which is kind of motivation for me to make more such videos on this particular sessions. Okay, now coming to today's session, which is timing diagrams of APB protocol. So in the previous session, while we are talking about the operating states of APB, we have talked that okay, in APB there are three types of states, which are ideal, setup and access. And also when it comes to access state, okay, by taking P ready signal into consideration, it will be either the transfer will be taking place or it will be going into the wait states. So basically, while we are studying about the timing diagrams in APB, in timing diagrams there are two kinds of things, that is read transfer and write transfer. Okay, again in read and write transfers also, they are again two different things, that is with wait and without wait. Okay, that means waiting transfer. That means if the as I told you, if p ready in the previous session we have already discussed that if p ready equal to 0, then the bus will be in the waiting state. Okay, if p ready equal to 1, then the actual transfer takes place. Is it or not? So based on that into consideration, if p ready, by taking p ready signal into consideration, if p ready is not equal to 1, then the bus will be in the waiting state. So we'll see how the timing diagram will be for waiting state thing, how the transfer is going to happen when there is waiting state, and how the transfer is going to happen without this waiting state. Okay, right, now let us discuss the first thing, which is right transfer. Okay, and the right transfer without waiting state. Okay, that means without waiting state means you should know that period is obviously will be is going to be 1. Okay, so before that, okay, let us see the timing diagram. So the first thing that we take into consideration is clock. And also in the introduction class itself, I have already discussed you, the peak clock is always positive edge in APB. That means for every positive edge of the clock cycle, the changes will be taking place, right? So here, if you see here, these are the clock periods. If you see from T0, T1, T2, T3, T4. Okay, so you already know that there are three states, which are ideal, setup and access. Is it or not? So when it comes to ideal state, as we have already discussed, the first state is going to be the ideal state. That is from the period T0 to T1, this is going to be the ideal state. So what is going to be happen in this state? So all the values will be in its default values, like either zeros or the previous values what they are going to there, that will be present. So here, if you see, in ideal thing, everything will be 0. If you see here, right, pw data, p ready, everything will be in their 0 values. Okay, p write, everything itself. If you see here, the p write is 0. Okay, and then but the p address will be registered, like since it will be there. Okay, the p address is going to be registered here. right? So this is for the ideal state. Now coming to the next state, which is going to be the setup state. So in the setup, from the name itself you could say that in setup there are certain signals which are going to be set up. That means there are certain signals which are going to be active in this particular state. So those are some control signals. Okay, so what come under this control signals which will be active in this setup state? Okay, so here firstly, according to the operating thing, here p select x equal to 1. So the p select is going to be 1 here. If you see here, this is the setup state within this line. If you see here, so in here the p select is 1. Okay, and also along with p select there are, as I told you, certain control signals which will be active. So what are those? So since the slave is selected, so the address will be registered, address region for that particular slave will be registered. Okay, the address is registered, and then there is another control signal which is p write. So based on p write signal, whether you want to write it or read it, it will be based on this p write. So here if you see, the p write is 1. So since this is 1, then you could say that this is going to be the write transfer. If this is not 1, then this is going to be the read transfer. Since this is 1, this is going to be the write transfer. Okay, so these are the two signals which are active in this particular setup state. Okay, so p select is going to be 1, and the address region is going to be selected, and then the p write signal is going to be 1 or 0 based on type of transfer. So this is the thing that is going to happen in setup state, right? And then coming to the next period of t2 to t3, this is going to be our axis state. So in this axis state, what is going to be happen? Okay, so if you see here in the axis state, along with p select equal to 1, p enable is also going to be 1. So here, okay, the address region is going to be the same, and the write is also going to be the same. Okay, 1, and then the p select is also 1 according to the previous one. Now the p enable is going to be 1. Okay, in the axis, so before it is 0. If you see here, here at axis state, this p enable is going to be 1. So since p enable is 1, then what happens? Now we will be checking for p ready. In this axis state itself, we will be checking for p ready. Now if you see here, until here the p ready value is 0. Now at this axis state itself, the p ready value is 1. Since the p ready is 1, then the transfer is going to take place. What is the transfer? P write data. So that means this is my data. If you see here, this data I am going to put it in this address. So within this address 1, my data 1 is going to be transferred. That means writing. So the master is going to write this data 1 into this address 1. Okay, so since this period is 1, so there is no need to wait. You just need to transfer the data, this data, into this particular register in the access state itself, and then in this way the transfer will be continuing to takes place, right? So this is about how you are going to write transfer without wait states. Now this is the thing, you can just check this. I'll just pause this for 5 seconds. You can just check the writing of this particular write transfer without wait states, and if you have any doubts, you can just ping me in the comment box. And here the technical words like assertion and deassertion means values going from 0 to 1. Okay, that means here 0 means they are deasserted, 1 means they are asserted. Okay, assertion and deassertion means values changing from 0 to 1 and 1 to 0, they are called assertion and deassertion signals. Okay, so this is how the transfer is going to take place for write transfer. Now if you see here, the same without wait states for read transfer. So for this, what is going to happen? Again the same thing. This is ideal, this is setup, and this is axis. Okay, so in the ideal state everything will be 0. Fine. Now coming to setup state, the address is registered and the p write is 0, which is why this is a read transfer. Okay, so p write is 0. Now in the setup state, the select is going to be, slave is going to be selected. Okay, So since the slave is selected, the address is registered and the p right is 0. So the control signals are fine here. Now coming to the access state, the p enable is 1 and the remaining values are same. Okay, and the p enable is going to be 1 here. So this is my data. Okay, now after p enable is going to be 1, what are the thing that what is the signal that we are going to check here? P ready. Now the p ready is also 1 along with p enable. So the transfer is going to take place. So what is the transfer that is going to take place? From this address, okay, this data 1 is going to be read, okay, by the master. That means master is reading the data 1 that is present in this address, that is going to be read by this PR data. Okay, so we are reading this particular data from address 1. Okay, that is the meaning of reading. In writing, what you will do, you will write this data into this address 1. Okay, in reading, what you will do, you will read this data 1 from this address 1. Okay, so that is what happening here. Since the period is already 1, so no need to wait. The same thing. Okay, so this is for read and write transfer. The only change for read and write transfer is p write signal. Okay, if p write signal is 0, then it is read transfer. If p write signal is 1, then that is the write transfer. That's it. Okay, the remaining is same for everything in both read and write transfers. Now coming to the next thing, which is the, okay, you can just pause and check the wordings for this particular thing. If you don't understand, as I told you, you can ping me in any of my social media handles. Now coming to the same right transfer with wait states. Okay, this is going to be somewhat interesting here. So just like the before thing, this is ideal and this is setup and this is going to be my access. Okay, now as I told you, in ideal everything will be going to be zeros or their default values, obviously. Okay, and then coming to my setup. So in my setup, my slave is selected. Okay, since the slave is selected to be 1, so my address is being registered. Okay, so this address is registered and then the p write is 1, which means that write transfer is going to take place. So p write is 1, p select is 1, and obviously p enable will be 0. Okay, and also the p ready is 0. Now coming to access state. Now what happens in the access state? The same address is going to be here also, and then write is 1, select is 1. Now here the enable is 1. Okay, if you see here, the enable is 1. Now after enable, what you are going to check? You are going to check the p ready signal. Now if you see here, the p ready is not 1 but it is 0. Okay, that means the slave is not going to accept anything that the master is sending, because the slave is not ready to accept anything. So that is why it is 0. So since p ready is 0, then what should do? It should be in a waiting state. Waiting state means everything will be in the same manner. In the next clock cycle also, if you see here, this is also the access state. Why this is also access state? Because it didn't take any data. The slave didn't take any data from the master. So again, the same values here. This is 1. If you see here, no changes. This is 1 and also this is 1. Okay, and also this is going to be 1. Again, if you see here, again here also the p ready is 0. That means again in the next cycle also the slave is not ready to accept anything. Now again in this phase also it will be going to be access, because here it is being in waited period. The access state is being for 2 clock periods. For 2 clock cycles it is in waiting state itself. Okay, for 2 clock cycles it is in waiting state. Now in the next clock cycle, if you see, okay, everything should be unchanged. Okay, so here it is also 1, and now here after 2 clock cycles, now the period is 1. That means now the slave is ready to accept the data. So what happens? This data is being transferred to this address in this clock cycle. Okay, so the transfer takes place in this particular access clock cycle. And then if there is no other transfers that need to happen, then again it will go to the ideal state. Or else if there are any other transfers, then again it will go to the What state? Setup state. Okay, as we have already talked about this operating in the operating states video, you just go there and check it out. What happens after period and what happens after period equal to 1 and the data is written into the address, what happens next? Okay, you can go there and check it out. So this is how the waiting is happening. So one important thing while we are doing this, while we are talking about this, if you see here in yesterday's session also I have talked about this. Okay, during the wait state, that means these two states are wait states. Okay, if you see here, during these two states, no data should be changed, like either p address or else p write values or p select values. Okay, p enable values, they should remain unchanged. Okay, if any of these particular values will be changed, what happens? This may lead to the loss of your data. Okay, the transaction will be at loss. Okay, so you may lose some amount of data while transferring. So which is why while it is in waiting period, the all the control signals and all the enable signal, everything should be remained untouched, they shouldn't be changed. Okay, then only there will be correct transfer of data. You can just think it like that. Okay, so this is how the write transfer is going to takes place with wait state. The same thing is going to happen for write data also. So this is about the write transfer. Okay, for the read transfer also everything is gonna be same, except that this p rate value will be 0 instead of 1. Okay, I'm not going to explain that again one more time for this. Okay, so this is about the read and write transfers. Okay, with and without wait states, right? So just check out this without states, just check out the writing, so that if you don't understand it, you can just ping me. Okay, with and without wait states. Now, okay, we have talked about all the signals. Now in the version 1.2, along with Pready, there is also one more signal which was added, which is the slave error signal, which is kind of a response signal. Okay, so basically if there is any error in the transaction, or if there is error in any during the transfer or else something, the master will be responding to the slave that there is some error. Okay, the slave is sending some error, so that okay, we are going to see the timing diagram for this slave error also, right? So the error response. So normally if there is no error during the transaction, this slave error won't be included. Okay, this slave error will be included only when there is any error in the response, or when you think there is some error in the response, then you can add this pre-slave error, or else there is, it is not mandatory that you should add this in every timing diagram. If you feel that there is any loss of transfer or anything, then you can include this Pslverr error signal. Now here again for this for the slave error also, there are like two kinds of here this is, if you see here, what is this particular timing diagram and what is this particular diagram. Okay, just ping me in the comment box. Okay, consider this as my first timing diagram and consider this as my second timing diagram, and just tell me before continuing this video which type of transfer is this and which type of transfer is this particular timing diagram. Okay, before continuing it, just ping me in the comment box. Okay, which kind of transfer is this and which kind of transfer is this. Okay, now if you see the thing here, as we already know, this is ideal. Okay, setup and access, the same thing, just like in the previous things we have discussed. No, so in ideal everything will be 0. So if you see here, in setup address is registered because slave is selected, and then the write is activated. So here the write is 1. So this is what? This is write transfer. Okay, so the write, since write is 1, so this is going to be write transfer, and in the setup it is 0. Okay, now coming to access state. So in the access state also, the address as well as the write and the select values won't be changed, they are all the previous values. Now along with it, p enable is 1. So after p enable is 1, what are we going to check? We are going to check about p ready. Here the p ready is 0, so which means the next cycle is also going to be access. So everything is one and data. Now here in the next cycle, the period is 1. That means the transfer has happened. Okay. So the transfer, since the period equal to 1, so the transfer is going to be taking place. So during this transfer taking place, okay, now if this p slave error is equal to 1, okay, after the transfer has taken place, if p slave error equal to 1, then this indicates there is error in your transaction. Okay, that means there is a loss of data due to various factors. We have already discussed that factors. Okay, so there may be some loss of data if p slave error equal to 1. Okay, after period equal to 1, the data transfer takes place. So that means this data is written into this address. So during writing of this data into this address, there may be some loss of data, because of which the slave error is activated as 1. Okay, the same thing here also. If you see here, the p write is 0, that means this is gonna be retransfer. Okay, so within this retransfer, if slave error equal to 1, then that means during reading, that means during the reading the data 1 from this particular address 1, the error, there may be some error, because of which what happens, the slave error is equal to 1. So that means there is some error transaction in this particular transfer also. Okay, so this is how you are gonna check this slave error, right? So these are the basic timing diagrams which we have discussed today. Only these diagrams enough for in order to know how the transaction is going to take place in APB protocol. Okay, so this is about all about the APB protocol. If you like this video, please do like, share and comment if you have any doubts on this particular video. That is all for today. Thank you all.